Hey everybody, welcome to the Tremain Show. I'm Tremain Davis, and today we're going to be talking about setting goals. Setting goals. This is a really hard conversation for founders sometimes. I have coached hundreds of startup founders at this point in my career, and this is not necessarily an easy topic to broach because it takes introspection, it takes a bit of honesty with yourself about the company that you're building, the things that you're doing, the goals that you're setting. Are they realistic? Are they too aggressive? Are you fabricating the metrics a little bit to make it seem like, you're doing certain things that you're not? These are the things that a lot of founders do. They will, do it for multiple reasons. Again, you're building something, this is your baby. Sometimes it's hard to look at the raw data and say, wait a minute, we're not hitting our goals. Did we even set goals? That's a whole nother thing that, comes into this conversation. Are you even setting goals? Are you setting the right goals? How are you setting those goals for your company and for your business? Like, these are the things that matter. But again, when you talk about metrics to measure, actually measure whether your company is moving forward, whether your idea is validated, whether the thing that you're trying to do is actually something that's working or not working. That's what setting these types of goals gets down to. And sometimes as a founder, it can be easier to just put your head in the sand and just pretend or act or, want in a perfect world, just want it all to work out, but if you're measuring your success and you're measuring against actual data, it'll tell you sometime that this ain't working. This thing is not going well, and if you spent time, if you spent money, if you spent resources, if you're passionate about what you're doing, sometimes that realization can be a lot for a founder to handle. And so that's why this conversation can get a little difficult sometimes, but I want to talk about it because, listen, if we don't talk about it here, where else are we going to talk about it? This is a place for the hard conversations as well as the good conversations. We'll high-five each other during the wins, but we can also be accountable to one another as we're going through the process that is a little bit tougher to uncover. All right, so setting goals. So, all right, the first thing let's talk about is setting, let's say, too aggressive goals. What do I mean by aggressive goals? Like, what is an example of an aggressive goal? So we just launched our company and we want to have, $1 million in ARR, annual recurring revenue, in 3 months. That is a very aggressive goal. To say that, annual recurring revenue every year, you're doing $1 million in revenue, you're going to do that with your product or service in 6 months. Like, that is very aggressive. Sometimes you got to figure out the source of where you're coming up with why that's a good benchmark. Sometimes, somebody will say, hey, well, I saw on social media or I saw another company that, is in the same space that I am, and they're doing, 500,000 in revenue. They're doing $1 million in revenue. So that's what we, needs to be a goal for us, And sometimes you can't take necessarily what somebody else is doing and make it a goal for you. It has to be a goal that's measurable, a goal that's attainable for where you are and what you're building, or some other founder who's experienced, maybe they exited, they've already sold their company, or, they've done stuff at a high level before, and they say, oh yeah, in order for you to raise money, you have to be at this particular level. You have to be at $1 million ARR. And I use that specific metric, $1 million ARR, because that's where we are with my edtech company. So in order to raise an A round, so you go through your pre-seed and your seed, you raise money throughout that process, you grow the company, then you get to a place where you want to raise an A round. That is generally a larger lump sum of money from venture capitalists so that you can grow this into a really big business. Like, the A round of funding is like a pivotal round, because that's how you go from like this early stage startup into like a real company that's doing, that's potentially going to get acquired or, on the pathway to go into an IPO. Like, the A round is really important. But a key metric, and this is like pretty much across the board for most venture capitalists, is that in order for us to even look at you, to give you money in an A round, you got to be at least doing $1 million in ARR. You know what I mean? Annual recurring revenue. Your company has to be doing at least $1 million annually in recurring revenue, meaning it's happening every year, in order for us to think about giving you money as an A round. So I'll give you all that background and say we're actually going through that right now in our ed tech company. We're trying to get to $1 million in ARR so that we can be ready for our A round raise next year in 2025. Now, does that mean that every one of our metrics that we do in sales and everything has $1 million ARR in it? No, that doesn't make sense. Just because that's what the venture capitalists are saying doesn't mean that we have to make that every metric in the company has to be that. You have to be thinking about it, not in terms of what other people are saying, but what is a real attainable metric based on the data that you have in front of you right now. So that's what I mean by a goal that's too aggressive. You don't want to set unrealistic goals for your company. If you've got a small business and you've got, 25 clients, all right, by next quarter, we want to be at 500 clients. Like, is that really an attainable goal to go from 25 clients to 500 clients? Maybe it is, but what data do you have to support that you can go from 25 clients to 500 clients in 1 quarter, in 3 months? So these are the things that you have to be thinking about when it comes to setting not just too aggressive goals, but bringing it down to something that's a little bit more realistic. All right, so that's the aggressive goal. Because what do I mean by aggressive goals? That's what I mean by aggressive goals. All right, what's the other thing that we can talk about when it comes to setting proper goals? Fake metrics. This one is actually really, really, really interesting. Again, I've seen so many companies over the years who will set these fake metrics, and then they want to benchmark against that, saying, hey, this shows that we're moving, in the right direction. So what I mean by fake goals. So let's just say things like, measuring registered users, you know what I'm saying? But not people who are actually paying for your product or paying for your service, all right? That can be a fake metric. It is a metric, but, does that really prove that you can sell this thing at a high level? Because you've got registered users, but will those registered users actually pay you money? Say you've got a thing that you sell for $10 a person, and you say, hey, we've got people who are registered, who've gone through the register, but they haven't paid us any money. But the registered users, we've got all these registered users, but at what level are they converting into actual paid users? All right. So that would be the real metric, not just the registered users. What are some other ones? Subscribers to a newsletter. Again, that's metric. That is a metric. We've got all of these subscribers to our newsletter. That definitely shows that people are interested in at least hearing something that you have to say. But is that a real measurement that you can base your company off of? All right. What are a couple of other ones? Counting website hits, that's a pretty popular one. We've got all these visitors to our website, type of thing. But again, the real metric would be, how are you able to convert those website hits into actual paying customers? Counting downloads if you've got an app, but not actual registrations, meaning people who are going to pay for it. Like, there are all of these kind of fake metrics that we can put together as founders that try to tell, to help try to tell this story that we're going in the right direction. But really, we're only fooling ourselves, okay? This is where I want to bring some reality to the conversation. Now, I'm not saying that any of those things are bad things. If you've got people who are willing to go through the registration process, sometimes I've seen where founders will try to count registrations in terms of people who have started the registration process but didn't actually finish the registration process. But just because they went through, you can see when they go on in the back end, you can see when they opened up the registration page, they put in their, their name and their phone number, but they haven't gone through the whole process and definitely haven't paid, but they'll count that. These are the things that become fake metrics when you are a founder trying to build a company. Now, again, those things are not necessarily bad things. It shows that people are engaging, all right? But at the end of the day, what you're trying to figure out as a founder, and this is where you have to get really, really brutally honest with yourself. What you're trying to figure out as a founder is, does this thing work or not? That's what you're trying to find out. Will people pay me money? Will somebody go into their pocket, reach out, and take their hard-earned money out of their pocket and give it to me for my product and or my service? Like, that's what you're trying to figure out as a founder, as a CEO, as somebody who's starting this business. Like, that is what you're trying to get at. And so putting these fake metrics in place doesn't really help you figure that out. You know what I mean? And so when it comes to setting goals, first of all, you don't want to be too aggressive with your goal setting. You want to bring it to something that's more realistic. Secondly, don't set all of these fake metrics, like counting all of this stuff. And again, there's nothing wrong with counting it, but don't use that as a mechanism of setting a goal for your company in terms of, is this working or not? Is this something we need to continue to pursue? Is this something that we need to continue putting money into, allocating resources towards this product or this service? Like, you have to be able to quickly say, all right, based on the metrics that we want to hit, not the fake metrics, but the real metrics, this thing doesn't seem like it's working. So maybe we need to pivot our idea. Maybe we need to change our idea. Maybe we need to go back and do some more customer discovery, something we've talked about a lot on this channel, so that we can figure out whether it's working, whether it's not working, where we need to make these changes. Ultimately, that's what you're trying to get to as a founder. All right, so those are what you don't do. What do you do? Base all of your decisions, I'm talking about real decisions, on real data. All right? So put metrics in place that actually point you towards the direction of figuring out whether it's working or not working. So what that means is that, excuse me, don't just count registrations or users or, website hits, but how many of those things are actually converting, we talked about this earlier, into paid customers? That's a metric that you want to know. How many people are renewing? What's your retention rate? How many of these people are churning? And what that means is that how many people use your product or your service one time but never come back. They don't tell anybody about it. They will never refer you to anybody. They will never buy again. Like people that use it once but never come back. Like that is a metric that you need to know. That is something that you can benchmark your company against. And like that's the real meat and potatoes. That's the data that you really want to know. So out of all those website hits, how many are converting? Out of all of the money, that you spent on marketing, how customer acquisition costs. Like that's a really good metric. We spent $10,000 on marketing and we got 5 clients. Like that means that you're spending, I don't know what that breaks down to, $2,000 a client. Like, is that a sustainable metric that it costs us $2,000 to get every one person in the door? Now that might make sense if you're selling a house, because a house is $500,000. So if you spend $2,000 on marketing and you get 5 clients that bought a $500,000 house, that makes sense. But if you spend $10,000 on Facebook ads or something like that and you only got 5 people to buy your $20 t-shirt, that is a whole nother thing. So that is a metric that you have to take seriously. And again, that's a real metric, a hardcore metric that might be hard for a founder to accept, because again, this is your baby, you're building this business, and sometimes it doesn't feel so good to look at this type of data. But I'm trying to encourage you as a founder, it's better to look at this data now before you start spending more money and more resources to build something out that may not necessarily be working. Now, does that mean you close the business down 100% and just, go back to a 9-to-5, go get a job? That's not what it means. It just means that maybe you need to pivot. Maybe you need to think differently about the solution that you're bringing to market. Maybe you need to speak with your customers more so that you can get more insights about the problem that you're trying to solve for them. That's all that this means. It doesn't mean that it's over, but it just means look at the data so that you can quickly understand where you are in your business, because the better you are at understanding this data, and not just that, setting goals so that you can get the right data out, the more equipped you are as a founder so that you can set yourself on a path to be successful. All right, this is an important topic. I say that all the time, but this one is really important because this is accountability. And accountability is sometimes really tough for a founder, especially an early stage founder, a young founder who may not be as confident in what they're doing. These things can be really tough conversations. I've had them tons with founders, and sometimes they don't go well, but I'm just trying to give them the honest truth. I've had to face these things myself in my own business. I gave my edtech company as an example a few minutes ago in this video, and something that we're actually dealing with right now. We've had to put real metrics in place so that we can make sure that we're not just arbitrarily saying, okay, the venture capitalists want to see $1 million in ARR, so that's what the goal is. No, we had to set more realistic goals so that we can get step by step to the place that we need to be. All right. I hope this video has been helpful. Thank you all for joining. As usual, please like, please subscribe. Send this to somebody. There's an entrepreneur that you know that needs to know about this channel and needs to know about this free content that can help them get their business to the next level. All right, I'm Tremain Davis, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.